Let me tell you how transphobia has affected me. First, I'll tell you why I'm talking about it. Then I'll tell you what it's been like. Then I'll tell you what I'm doing about it. The reason I'm bringing this up is because it's taken me a half a century to figure out how huge a part transphobia has played in my life. It was never framed as transphobia. No one ever said you're evil because you think you're a man. They said you're crazy because you think you're a man. Nobody ever said, oh, your interest in men is clearly indicative that you're a sexual pervert. Transgender is bad. No, instead they said, your interest in men makes it clear that you're a voracious slut that's just looking to take everybody's man. And that included the men themselves who would not let me become friends because men and women can't be friends. So, I was either interested in them or I was friend-zoning them to put them on hold in case I needed a man in my life in the future. And married men, of course, had to stay away from me. Their wives would freak out. And generally speaking, it was never framed as transphobia. It was just framed as personal rejection. I just felt personally rejected. Now, I'll tell you my experience with transphobia over the years that I identified as everything else but. I blamed it on the autism, which didn't help. I blamed it on my financial status. Although I was raised upper middle class, transphobia relegated me to poverty. And instead I thought it was because I couldn't do the job or I wasn't quite right. I blamed it on the autism. I blamed it on myself. I didn't blame it on some external factor that I had no control over. Because the very idea that transgender included women who want to be men was so far outside of the realms of understanding, awareness, or experience that it seemed like it was just a fantasy in my head. I had heard about transgender people. I knew about trans women. And so I knew that the idea of the gender in your head not matching the sex of your body was in existence. But what was I supposed to do about it? And there was all this conversation about embracing your femininity, about internalized misogyny, about learning to love your female body in spite of society putting it on you. And so a lot of my transgender impulses and my dysphoria translated to, womanhood is hard and it's hard to be female and society makes it hard to be a woman. So it was hard for me to say, no, it's because I'm not a woman and I hate being a woman. But even saying I hate being a woman had as much to do with I hate being treated like a woman as it did to do with the fact that I had a hard time accepting my body the way it was, and that my body did not satisfy me or please me as my body or feel like it belonged to me. It was my body. It wasn't me. It wasn't part of me. It was something I was wearing. And while I was incredibly happy, aesthetic-wise with that body, I really, really was satisfied with my figure. I was satisfied with my hair. I was satisfied with my looks, which did not endear me to the other women in the least. Because I was looking at myself with a man's eyes and seeing what a man would see. And I looked fine, baby, fine. And I wasn't looking with commercial eyes and seeing how I measured up to models. If anything, I was measuring up to porn stars and going, oh my Lord, those porn stars are so scrawny and abused. Why are men attracted to that? So anyway, I spent a long, long time trying to become more of a woman, that W-O-M-Y-N thing, that W-O-M-B-Y-N, woman, the whole shebang, baby, the whole shebang. I sat under the moon in moonlight bleeding into the earth. I don't think I ever actually did that. That was just disgusting. And I was like, nah, that's my line. But the idea behind it, the whole, embrace your femininity thing, I tried hard. And failed, I must say. I learned to be comfortable enough in my body not to be constantly disgusted with it. I was only occasionally disgusted. I found my body very disgusting. Just, let's not get into the details. I realize now that I would have been much more accepting of its various little biologies if I had felt female. If it had been part of who I was, and then I'd been like, oh yes, this is what women are. Women are made of water. Women are moist. Anyway, moving on. As a child, I was rigorously trained in how to grow up to be a young lady. I was endlessly corrected. Don't sit that way. That's how men sit. Don't like those toys. Those are boy toys. You must get into this. Go sit with the girls. Go do this girl thing. Why aren't you into this? No. You're supposed to be into that. I was supposed to be into all of these things that just seemed so frivolous, tedious, and plain uninteresting to me. I didn't want to play with dolls. I didn't care how babies were diapered. I did not feel, and to this day, babies look ugly to me. I occasionally will see a perfect baby face that has all the right features in all the right places and the right expression, and I'll be like, oh, look you baby. But it's extremely rare. For the most part, babies just look like packages of feces and stench that squall far too frequently. And they look like proto-humans, like little larvae, which is fine. I a sneaking suspicion the average man feels that way about babies that aren't like part of his genetics. He looks down and goes, yeah, but it's my little larvae. And that changes everything, doesn't it? Just like when you look at your dog, you love your dog, no matter what they look like. And you may not feel the same way about anyone else's dog or cat. So I grew up without that maternal impulse and feeling extremely deficient because of it. The world around me was constantly bombarding me with motherhood aspirations. The dolls that you're bought are all babies and little kid dolls, and you're supposed to pretend to babysit them. All of the games that you play, you're supposed to play mommy. When the kids played house at school, and they didn't, no, playing house was never a euphemism for sex, okay? Never. Neither was playing doctor in my childhood. We were that innocent. We were that protected from the knowledge of sex that it wasn't part of the play. But playing house and playing doctor were literally just playing house and playing doctor. When we played doctor, we pretended to cut each other's stomachs open. Pretend surgery. There was none of this, I've got to do a gynecological examination on you. We were too young for that. Although when I went in, I had a scratch across my stomach because when the little boy had dragged the stick across my stomach, it left a red line. And it was, and we were wearing summer clothes, like summer swimsuit type clothes. So I had a bare midriff. And it was no big deal, except that when the parents were like, oh, how'd you get that? Oh, we were playing doctor, I said. And he was operating on me. And I think it was a good 10 years before I could understand the reaction that the parents gave us. They flipped the flip out. And they didn't flip out in that, how dare you, screaming and yelling. They flipped out in that grim silence, and the guest leaves immediately and never comes back kind of a way. And no one explained a thing. They simply just went very silent, very angry, and him and his parents left. And there was no more conversation. And I was bereft because I'd had a friend, because I got along really good with boys. When they had crazy ideas, I thought they were fun. When they wanted to pick up squeamish things, I was into examining them. We wanted to play trucks, we wanted to play bulldozers, we wanted to build things, we wanted to examine little tote. I loved picking up rocks and examining things under streams and climbing trees and playing with mud and boy games. I really enjoyed it. I've just had a message flash up on my phone about recording while it's plugged in. Anyways, trying to get this in under the 20 minutes, so let's move on. I played with little boys, and I sat with my legs apart, and I ran hard, and I laughed loud, and I bragged a little when I had something to brag about. And as the years went by, I kept getting put down. You can't do this. You can't do that. You have to be this. You have to be that. And when I would fail to comply, either willfully or because I simply couldn't, they would punish me. Now, how do you punish a person who's not complying with social rules? You cast them out. And if they try to come back because the teachers are pushing them and saying, no, you have to, you start abusing them. And indeed, the teachers and parents did exactly that. They kept throwing me back in with the girls who hated me, that I didn't like, that I could not relate to and could not connect with, who then would turn around and abuse me. Abuse started verbally, but it actually did progress to physical abuse. There was never anything like a beating. It was more pinches, slaps, accidental injuries, and property theft and destruction, vandalism. So my things would get vandalized or vanish, or there was a lot of playing keep away, a lot. They'd take something from you and then they'd throw it over your head over and over again and laugh at you. And throwing things at you, missiles flown at you, pennies, candies, rocks. Never anything that was going to injure me. I was just a cute little kid. So they drew a line. They weren't going to injure me, but they were going to make it distinctly clear that I was a persona non grata. And this continued. In high school, I finally found some relief. I hung out with the male nerds, the chess club, the rocket club. We played cards in the cafeteria at lunchtime. And I had like a half a dozen people around me, all boys, that I got along with super great. I was one of the guys, except that I wasn't. Every last one of those boys was hoping that I'd make him my boyfriend. I wasn't interested. I'm not asexual, I'm demisexual. I become extremely interested if there is an intimate emotional connection between me and another person. Then, and only then, I could become romantically attracted. And sexual attraction, I've always found women more sexually attractive, visually speaking, than men. Always. But like I say, if I'm emotionally into it, I'm into it. It doesn't matter what body you have anymore at that point. You can be ugly too. Oh, my phone temperature's going up. That's the complaint. It's fine. So, okay, I move on. I live a heterosexual life because there's nothing I can do about being trans. I can't get along with lesbians. And being bisexual, I can choose. And I do get along better with men. So, the thing is, the men that I was getting along with kept casting me in a woman role, treating me like a woman. I wasn't allowed to do this. I wasn't allowed to do that. You open the hood of a car as a female, and if there's a male in the area, you will be pushed physically shouldered out of the way. And you open the door, grab a wrench. The next thing you know, somebody is pushing on your shoulder and taking the tool out of your hand and saying, no, here, let me do that. I kid you not, over and over and over again, whatever it was I was doing in life, someone came along to interfere. I either wasn't doing it feminine enough or I was too feminine to be doing it at all. When I tried to float career ideas at my parents, no, you're not butch enough for that. That's a job for boys. You'll get teased for trying to do that because you're a girl and that's for boys, and you can't take being teased, because by now I had severe CPTSD because I got teased at home too. My entire world teased me. Oh, we're only teasing. Why can't you take a joke? And there was no soft place to go. There was no safe place for me except the attic, where I would run and sneak into a crawl space to hide from my mother so she couldn't come find me and start her emotional abuse bullshit.